Rebellion. It is not a very lovely word. The elite of Homeworld have been overthrown, not by a small body of insurgents, but by an entire world that has turned upon its hereditary rulers. Today on the Comic Book Report, Micronauts, the original Marvel Years Omnibus Volume 1. Stick around and check it out. Greetings from the Microverse, everyone. My name is Dominic, and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I've prepared another Marvel Omnibus review for everyone. That's right, we're looking at Bill Mantlo's Micronauts. Admittedly, this title fell just outside my usual realm of reading, but I'm so happy I gave it a chance. I ended up really enjoying this book, and I cannot wait to talk about it today. But before we do, I just want to give a special thank you and shout out to our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up a copy of this omnibus or any other comic book collected edition, I encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you see anything there you like, you can use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Bill Mantlo and penciled primarily by Michael Golden, Howard Chaykin, Pat Broderick, and more. The comics in this volume were published by Marvel Comics beginning in 1979. The volume itself collects the Micronauts 1979 issues 1 through 29 and annuals 1 and 2. And finally, this is an oversized hardcover edition with nice glossy print paper stock, a sewn binding, and a total of 744 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at that Micronauts Omnibus. Real quick, I will say this is one of the direct market covers for this book. Really quickly, I'll show you a thumbnail of the standard edition cover for this book, along with the two other direct market covers available. Yeah, we have a lot of options here, just those quick looks so you can compare. I personally really dig the cover I got, but there again is a lot of great collectible options out there. Very fun that Marvel gave so many choices. Looking at the spine, I really love the spine of this book. I really hope the rest of the volumes in this line maintain consistency because I just love it. That big, narrow Micronauts font. I should say I believe there's a different picture at the bottom of each spine depending on your cover. Everything else should be the same though for the spine. But yeah, I really dig it. And if I didn't mention it earlier, this is volume 1 of a total of 3 omnibus editions that are going to be coming out from Marvel to collect this whole era of Micronauts. The back of the book also looks really great. We have the thumbnailed covers of all of the issues they include in this book, along with some blurbs about this run, what it's about, creators, what it includes. But yeah, you get to see all the issues in miniature here, which I love. Those first 29 issues and the 2 annuals. Very cool stuff, and a look at the team at the bottom. Overall, I actually think this is a wonderful dust jacket design. And to that end, we're actually going to take one more minute to examine the cover of this book, so let's go ahead and remove the dust jacket. I'll go ahead and show you the interior flaps of the dust jacket, and then I'll go ahead and spread it all out for you so everyone can see what this dust jacket looks like, just totally spread out at a glance. And again, for each cover, the actual cover of the dust jacket as well as the picture on the bottom of the spine will be different. Otherwise, all of the details remain the same to my knowledge. Like I said, I'm a fan of this direct market cover, but there's so many winners. On the hardback book itself, we have a cool molecular interpretation of the whole microverse. I really like it. Basically, everything's along this strand that kind of looks like DNA on this microscopic scale. I just think it looks really great. We have the kind of yellow microverse across a field of black, kind of like open inner space, but just really cool. It even has that late 70s vibe to it, which is really, really fun. In my opinion, again, a great dust jacket design and wonderful art on board. Okay, and now for all you prospective collectors out there, let's take a look at the binding. Like I said, this is sewn binding. Mine was a little stiff, as in not a lot of eye here, unfortunately, so a little bit fell into the gutter. Nothing too critical. I was able to push down the pages where needed to see everything. But yeah, this is the binding after I read it through once. Overall, no complaints. And now that we've talked a little bit about the build of the book, we can go ahead and transition into the collection proper. As we open it up, we have some black end pages, title page, kind of a creator page, publication information, but then we do have a full table of contents on this omnibus. I love to see it. It's numbered, labeled, so easy to find your favorite issues and reference everything. Then we actually have an essay at the front, which is also a blast, gives a bit more context to what you're about to read, the history of Micronauts, which is pretty fascinating. I really, really loved that. Always love seeing some written material in omnibuses. I think it's a great feature. And then we actually have a 2-page map of the microverse, which is also a very fun little addition. And then after that, we begin with issue 1. And I will say Micronauts waste no time jumping right into the action of this main series. We have a kingdom in total turmoil. We have the return of a figure who has been traveling inner space for 1,000 years. And we have the emergence of our basically superhero team here in the Micronauts. Before we jump into the actual plot of this book, though, I want to do a little bit of background. This is some of what was contained in that early essay, but for those that don't know, Micronauts is actually a licensed property that Marvel did back in the late 70s. They just recently got the license back, which is why we're seeing reprints of this and things like ROM, the Space Knight, which is also getting its omnibus sequences released. But yeah, this is a late 70s hit, but it's based on a line of toys, I believe, from Mego. Anecdotally, Bill Mantlo had his child, his son, I believe, opened on Christmas morning, got some of these Micronaut figures. He got to see a few of the figures and their names, and immediately his mind just started racing to all of these possible backstories for these characters, and it looks like Marvel Editorial was looking for some new blood, to say the least. He said, hey, I think we need to license these characters because I have an idea. And essentially, the Micronauts comic series was born. So we have these characters here. They're from inner space. This is not in outer space, inner space. But this does feel like a total science fiction space opera. It came out right on the heels of Star Wars. So this was definitely a pitch-perfect genre in the zeitgeist at the time. And I think that that helped with the popularity of this series, absolutely. But there's a lot of real good here. As far as what we're getting, going again back to the plot now, we basically have Homeworld, which is this main world within the microverse where our main characters live. We have the space glider, Arcturus Ran. I would say he's the main character in this ensemble, although there's a lot of great major characters. His whole thing was he is, I think, of a royal blood, and he goes off and becomes kind of the first Micronaut, a kind of astronaut in the microverse, and he's basically traveling through the microverse for 1,000 years. In between some visits, he is basically just in suspended animation the whole time, and through this process, he gets kind of a mind meld with this kind of robotic creature on his ship, and he basically has kind of a psychic rapport with this robot, and so the robot has more humanity, but this is sort of his automated buddy who helps him on his journeys. And basically, Micronauts picks up those 1,000 years later. It turns out his parents were murdered by their chief scientific advisor, Baron Karza. He basically becomes this crazy dictator, the likes of like a Darth Vader meets like a Hitler kind of figure. He opens these horrible things called the body banks, where basically people like the rich elite or people that are worthy of his service can get immortal, eternal life, but they harvest organs and body parts and do all these like monstrous things to achieve that. And Baron Karza is basically at the helm, and he's reigned for 1,000 years, a dictator on this once beautiful planet. Along the way, though, there is still a royal family or line that's still kind of going on now after Arcturus's parents were murdered. There's kind of a different family that's sort of the reigning family, and the descendants are still there. And basically on Homeworld, there's a lot of kind of like whispers of rebellion, but they're really under the thumb of Baron Karza. Now, the royal family, one of them, Princess Mary, Marionette, this is one of the other major main characters in this series. She's kind of a tough warrior princess and eventual love interest, her and Arcturus. But basically we have her, and then we have her brother, the Prince Argon, who is kind of captured and has his own subplot. I would say he's maybe a sub-character. He's not really on the main team. But basically, everything's coming to a head on Homeworld. The rebellion is imminent, and back comes the space glider Arcturus Ran. And basically, we have this whole sort of attempted coup situation, in addition to the robot and Princess Mary and Arcturus, and even Mary has her own robot. There's like Roboid and Biotron and Robotron or something. I don't know. There's a couple robot characters, and then we also have a couple sort of rebellious other alien creatures. One of them, Prince Acroyear. He's sort of the leader of this planet of the Acroyears, which are just this crazy wild warrior race, or basically now they're a warrior race. They're kind of like the Spartans. And the other one is Bug. He's kind of an insect-based race that some of these people were allies with Baron Karza, some not so much, but these two were definitely enslaved. Basically, they all join up on this team, they all become Micronauts, and they kind of get off Homeworld before they're able to defeat Baron Karza, but they're able to at least leave the planet. Before long, they break through something called the Space Wall, which was a thought to be impenetrable barrier separating the microverse from our own universe in our own planet Earth. So we have the Micronauts before too long venturing into our Earth proper, or at least the Earth of Marvel 616. And the novelty of this is once they break into our world, they're no longer microscopic, but they are still quite small, the size of a small action figure. Yep, we see what we did there. And they're basically in this alien environment. They befriend some people, but it's not before too long that some followers of Baron Karza and Baron Karza himself ultimately find the Micronauts, and now Baron Karza has his eyes open to a whole new realm and place to play and exert his evil will. Another character I should have mentioned is the elusive Time Traveler. Time Traveler or Time Travelers are essentially this sort of ethereal, floating, kind of spiritual being that has sort of unlimited power and all this knowledge, and we find out that this might be some kind of psychic projection and is the sort of collective effect of what Arcturus did when he was doing that 1,000-year sleep. He kind of has this bond to the Time Traveler, which is sort of like his essence mixed with this power known as the Enigma Force. It's all kind of mystical and odd, but this is sort of another super-based being, and this essence, like I said, is linked to Arcturus, but can also be imbued into others, and this actually happens. There's a sort of fight that culminates around issue 6 or 8, I believe, where Baron Karza comes to the real world. He teams up with this sort of cyborg mad scientist man, and it's basically the Micronauts, the allies they were able to make on Earth, versus Baron Karza and this creepy cyborg guy. And in this battle, we have one of the allies of the Micronauts, this kind of family man, this father, basically accepting the powers of the Enigma Force, and he takes on the mantle of Captain Universe. Now, this is the first appearance of Captain Universe, which was really exciting to see. I initially had no idea that this is where that character debuted. For longer-term fans of the Marvel Universe, we might recognize Captain Universe from subsequent runs on Avengers, or Spider-Man actually tapped into the power of the Enigma Force at one point. Venom may have. We have a bunch of characters that have tapped into this kind of primal wild force, but anyway, really cool to see the origins here. After that, we have a couple other stories. We have Acroyear trying to take back the throne, not because he wants it, but because he's trying to stop his kind of evil albino brother who's kind of gone mad and joined the dark side. We learn more about the Acroyears and their planet that they found. Basically, they were sort of a nomadic, peaceful race that found this planet that has its own power. It's kind of a living planet that has its own spirit or something, but ultimately when they got to this planet, they kind of became this warrior race, and supposedly the kind of destined ruler of the planet every so often could tap into the power of the entire planet, and that is Acroyear. We see that happen a couple times across this book, which is also really fun. There's a little diversion at one point where Bug returns to his own kind of insect-based planet. We meet a couple other love interest characters for Acroyear and Bug, respectively. We have have the relational dynamics between Arcturus and Princess Mari sort of flourish throughout this book as well. We have them falling in love. And this book is really kind of a back and forth between the Micronauts on Earth battling a bunch of different villainous people they sort of get caught up in, and going back home to the microverse and trying to solve problems over there. We also have some great subplots in the microverse, even without the Micronauts, like Prince Argon or the leader of the rebellion, this warrior woman named Slug. Those two also have a romantic relationship as well. And it's just a lot of fun. This is like old school sci-fi. There's some cool kind of like 70s futurist ideas in here. Again, I think this is really good for fans of franchises like Spider-Man or maybe Guardians of the Galaxy, and especially if you don't mind going back and reading 70s, 80s comics, this is a real home run. We do have a lot of battles as well between the Micronauts and Baron Karza throughout this omnibus. We have some cool interactions throughout this book as the actual Micronauts get more embedded into the Marvel Universe. We have cameos from different mainstay Marvel characters. I think the first one is the Man-Thing, which is a fun crossover. But then we have the Fantastic Four and Nick Fury and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And we have Scott Lang's Ant-Man. And it's really cool to see the Micronauts just in this world. They're in the world of the 616, and they brush shoulders with some of these other heroes. Before reading this book, I was only vaguely aware of the Micronauts, and I think I had only actually seen a few of these characters in the Genis Vell Captain Marvel run from Peter David. There were a couple cameos there, but really, really fun to actually read this series proper. When I started this omnibus, I actually wasn't sure if this would be a series I would like or keep. By the middle, I thought, I definitely want to keep this. This is a great book, but I don't know if I'm going to finish this run. But now, after completing the book, I can't wait for volume 2 to come out. It absolutely has me. It is so fun. Like I said at the top too, this is a kind of whole series that maybe is slightly off the beaten path for me. I don't always read a ton of late 70s comics. I do occasionally. And this sort of genre, it's a bit removed from the straight up superhero tights flights kind of stuff, but it really works. Like I said, it's a total sci-fi space opera kind of genre, and it's just fun. The characters are engaging, the subplots and plot lines are all really kind of political, gripping, and interesting in a good way, and there's just a lot going for it. I think the characters all have a lot of distinction and agency, and I found myself being more interested in some of their backgrounds and their cultures and how they interacted with all the characters around them. Sometimes there's conspiracies, and sometimes there's betrayals, and like I said, it just hooked me, and I think that that's really in large part due to Bill Mantlo. He knows how to tell a good story, he knows how to make it character-driven, and like I said, it didn't take long before I was just hooked. I will say on a personal note, I do like that we began right in the middle of the action, in medias res, right in the middle of the situation, but I would say if you're like me, it can take a couple issues to kind of find your bearing. You start at such a breakneck speed, it took me a while to actually separate, okay, this is this character, this is where they're from, this is the central conflict. But just a couple issues in, and I was pretty locked into the main narrative, and from there, it was just an absolute thrill ride for me. So much fun. This was definitely a page-turner, which for a book that's a bit dated, again, by today's standards, I think that that is a real compliment. I could honestly say, for me, this was a page-turner. I think another big part of that, though, is definitely due to the artists across this book. We have a lot of great artists attached in this omnibus, but the main artist we get for a majority of the omnibus is the incredible Michael Golden. Now, I had heard about his art even before I picked up this book, but this is my first time really experiencing it for myself. So immersive. I love how he draws these characters. They all have such distinction. I think the setting is so rich and detailed, and honestly, that is so important for a heavy sci-fi series like this, the world building. So having Golden on pencils along with some of these other creators, it really just helps fill out that world that Mantlo is talking about. It was so easy to just get lost in it, whether it was the microverse or even parts of Earth at this interesting scale. It was really fun, like seeing the characters run around trying to get out of the way of a lawnmower, for example, and the grass is just towering above them. It's just really cool how they forced perspective and just got creative with some of these books. I loved, again, the collaboration with Ant-Man. I thought was a really novel idea because they're kind of on par with size, and overall just a really fun series. The omnibus leaves at actually a pretty cool moment. We get like an epic, like large conclusion to a major storyline and kind of the aftermath, and then that's going to gateway into volume 2. And that's going to be when they return to the microverse yet again. Really excited for that, but I'm really happy where this volume left off. It didn't cliffhang horribly, but it made me excited for the next chapter. In the back of the book, we're also gifted with a wealth of extras. We have some great kind of original artwork reproduced here, some great covers, different covers for collections. We have some written work, advertisements, little essays that talk about the Micronauts, some of the history again, and I really like this. I think that they really filled out this omnibus with a wealth of extras, which by no means is expected, but it is hoped for these omnibus collections. I think for longer term fans of the Micronauts, this is going to be a real treat, or if you're a new reader like me, it's just a really great bonus to kind of further embed myself in this world. I'll just flip through the last of these extras here. Like I said earlier, just a wealth of extras. Like, look at all this. So cool after an already great, outstanding collection. But yeah, that's going to be the end of this omnibus. Again, Micronauts, the original Marvel Years Omnibus Volume 1. An absolute delight. Honestly, this packed way more of a punch than I even hoped for. Really fun reading experience. And now all that's left is to give this book a grade. For a refreshing and fun journey into inner space and beyond, the Comic Book Report is so happy to give Micronauts, the original Marvel Years Omnibus by Bill Mantlo, Michael Golden, and more, a B+. What a fun start to this incredible series. If you like 70s, 80s, kind of space operatic science fiction, there might be no better title in the Marvel canon. This was such a treat. The ensemble cast of characters was compelling and interesting, as was the villainous cast of characters. The art throughout was absolutely stunning, and I think especially for a comic of this time, it was honestly a page-turner, and I am so happy to say that. This made me really eager for the subsequent volumes, but that is just my opinion on Micronauts. What is yours? I'd love to hear what you think of this book in the comments section. Have you ever read the Micronauts? Is this a title you're interested in? Let's get those conversations going. And for everyone else, thank you so much for watching. This has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave a like, a comment, and maybe share the video with a friend. Thanks so much. Bye.